Welcome to Positive Atheism English channel. Today, from the book The Life and Times of Gora, written by Mark Lindley, in continuation of Chapter 7, Historical Background to Gora's later work, we are learning about, in the five eminent friends, today we shall know about the first, Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru, 1889-1964, was the Prime Minister of the Republic of India from its inception until his death. He was the only son much doted upon. Jawaharlal means precious jewel of a very rich, culturally Anglophile lawyer who, under Gandhi's influence, became patriotic about India soon after World War. Jawaharlal was educated by private tutors at home, then at one of the most elite British secondary schools, Harrow, then at Cambridge University, and then in London, where he earned a qualification to practice as a lawyer. But he found that kind of work boring and soon gave it up. He first met Gandhi in 1916 at a meeting of the Congress. The first of his many jail terms was in 1921-22 for his participation in the non-cooperation movement that Gandhi had launched in 1920. In 1926-27, he traveled in Western Europe and also in Soviet Russia, where he was feted by the ruling party and felt inspired by the aura of egalitarianism, which he thought he found there. He later told Gandhi in a private argument, "No man is really unemployed in a socialistic order. Take Russia. Every man is a producer. He is part and parcel of the nation's wealth. You must see that, in theory, a certain economic structure will give you ideal conditions. We in India proceed towards it non-violently. Your non-violent approach as far as conversion is concerned, that is, converting people to a moral outlook, not to this or that religion, is right, but you can't make a convert give up his vested interests." Nehru's first term as President of the Congress was in 1929, and he thus presided at the raising of the prospective national flag when the delegates resolved to seek complete self-rule. Well before the provincial legislative elections of 1937, in which he proved to be an extremely diligent and effective vote winner for the Congress, Nehru had been chosen by Gandhi to be his political heir. Their ideas about religion, economics, Marxism, lifestyle, and how to cope with World War II differed very much, but they were bound to each other by mutual political need as well as by great affection, esteem, and decency. Nehru, as the prospective and then the actual Prime Minister, was good at working out compromises, some of them healthier than others, among the various Congress factions. He is often blamed in retrospect for some of the compromises. Nehru's most original idea as Prime Minister was India's non-aligned status, emulated by several other countries including Burma, Indonesia, Egypt, and Yugoslavia in the ideological and political Cold War between the West and the USSR. In my opinion, his worst compromise was that when the constitution was being drawn up, he yielded in regard to the issue of universal primary schooling to those who were quite content for the peasants to remain illiterate. Universal primary schooling was allocated to the Directive Principles of State Policy section, which outlined a set of provisions not enforceable in any court. In 2005, an amendment to the constitution declared enforceable the right of all children in the age group of 6 to 14 to receive education supplied as the state may determine by law. The practical effect of this latter phrase has proven to be somewhat analogous to that of the phrase "with all due haste" at the end of the American Supreme Court's ruling in 1954 that the public schools in the USA must be racially integrated. "With all due haste" turned out to mean during some future decades, whereas in India, the phrase "as the state may determine by law" was initially taken to mean that as far as poor children were concerned, the provincial governments could get away with providing, instead of primary schools with classrooms, books, etc., and teachers paid according to the established rates for public schools in India. Education guarantee centers with no classrooms or books and with untrained teachers paid less than half the salary of a regular teacher. For better or worse, Nehru followed common sense in his thinking. I will cite below some examples in his responses to some of GORA'S and Vinoba's initiatives. An example that is particularly relevant to certain aspects of the collaboration between Gora and Kumarappa in the 1950s was a speech entitled Social Aspects of Small and Big Projects, which Nehru gave in November 1958 about the disease of gigantism in India's economic planning. He was now thinking in a more positive way than before about the small irrigation projects, the small industries, and the small plants for electric power, which he said would change the face of the country more than a dozen big projects in half a dozen places. It didn't happen because vested interest in making big profits while administrating big projects continued to influence government planning in large part because of government corruption, which Nehru never noticed. He left to others the fiscal aspects of governing. But still the speech shows that in his own thinking, common sense would characteristically outweigh ideology. The following excerpt from another of Nehru's speeches, which some people made fun of because they went on for so long, illustrates the common sense decency and made him in many ways a great Prime Minister. We have a Muslim minority who are so large in numbers that they cannot, even if they want, go anywhere else. That is a basic fact about which there can be no argument. Whatever the provocation from Pakistan and whatever the indignities and horrors inflicted on non-Muslims there, we have God dealt with his minority in a civilized manner. We must give them security and the rights of citizens in a democratic state. If we fail to do so, we shall have a festering sore which will eventually poison the whole body politic and probably destroy it. He showed the same decency in international dealings. When Fidel Castro visited New York in 1960 to address the UN General Assembly, no hotel downtown would put him up, so he went to a Harlem hotel where, as he told an Indian friend many years later, the first person who visited me as Prime Minister Nehru, I can never forget his magnificent gesture. Some of Nehru's favorite lines of poetry were Robert Frost's, but have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. For quite a few years, he was the most widely and deeply respected statesman in the world, and deservedly so, in my opinion, as his political leadership ensured that independent India would be a parliamentary democracy, notwithstanding the dire poverty due to the former British imperial policies and to the high levels of illiteracy in the 1950s. The wife of the last imperial viceroy loved Nehru, and even Churchill, who had openly voiced disdain for Gandhi and who in 1946 had inaugurated the Cold War, called Nehru the jewel of Asia. Thank you. We shall meet again in the next episode.
Please download Samaram multi-channel app and watch your favorite channels from your mobile. App available on Google Play Store and subscribe to the channels. For more videos, please subscribe to this channel Positive Atheism and activate the bell icon.